The European spotlight is right now illuminating its eastern edges as Ukraine co-hosts the world's third largest sporting spectacle, Euro 2012. But some think political controversy and profiteering by hoteliers have lost this country the chance to score a wide-open goal.
It's a good opportunity, but I feel and I see that we failed.
Failed. On my journey through Ukraine, I'll be finding out what an $1,100 a night hostel room looks like. Pretty rudimentary. Visiting a naval port with a split personality. I've taken all the cards. And sampling overnight train travel, Ukraine style. When Moscow was merely a minor outpost and London a Roman settlement, Kiev was the birthplace and hub of Slavic civilization. It's got its fair share of beatific monuments, and right now it's on a charm offensive to regain its place on the world stage. But just as with the history of the rest of Ukraine, sometimes it feels like 2 steps forward and 1 step back. But right now, it's all about putting your best foot forward. Ukraine's capital has been busy sprucing itself up for Euro 2012. It's often said that Ukraine is a work in progress. Now I know what they mean.
I let down last breath.
In total, nearly $15 billion has been spent by the Ukrainian government. The transport system has been modernised. 4 new airports with a new terminal at the international airport in Kiev. Hello, do you speak English? And the promise of signage in English everywhere. Okay. Hi, do you speak English? Yes, I do. A little bit. I want to go to Academ Stagecourt. Including the underground. So you're in a strange country with an alphabet you can't read, Cyrillic to be exact. What do? You ask a policeman. Excuse me, can you tell me where the Independence Square is, please? Hi, can you tell me where the caves and the monastery is, please? The monastery caves? A couple of weeks before the tournament started, some of the police here seemed a little bashful. Do you speak English? No, you don't speak English? Okay, I just wanted to find out where the monastery and the cave is. It's actually running away from me. Apparently, many more English-speaking policemen are in place now the football has actually kicked off. But help was at hand. Dmitry is the star pupil, apparently, in the police academy English classes. What do you find is the most difficult thing about learning English?
I think it's the words. You have to know more words. Your vocabulary in the brain have to be, I don't know how to explain it, like an elephant, you know.
The A team in Kiev may be prepared, but there are some doubts about whether Ukraine as a whole is ready and able to deal with a large influx of visitors from all over Europe, and to control racist thuggery inside and outside stadiums. This frightening attack on Indian students sitting in the family enclosure a few weeks ago in Kharkiv by supposedly fellow Metalist supporters, well, that's got to be worrying to everyone. 3 Euro 2012 games will be played here. The British Foreign Office, UK Foreign Office, has advised people of Asian or Afro-Caribbean descent to take extra care when they're in Ukraine. Now, this worries me. What do you say to that? What does it say about your country?
We do not require any special injection or something to come to Ukraine. And as I said, last year we received 24.5 million of the foreign tourists. So the increase was 20% according to 2010. And all of these people were very safe in Ukraine.
To be fair, I didn't experience any overt hostility or racist abuse throughout my trip. Although fears of this have led to the decision by family members of a couple of English players not to come. I am not white, and I know that there is racism in every country, and there's racism in this country too. What can you do to say to me, you will be safe? How can you protect people from being racist, having racist attacks on them?
На стадионах будут находиться.
You see, there'll be stewards at the stadiums who are undergoing a special training, and if any aggressive banter should happen between fans, that would be stopped. But I wouldn't claim, though, that a person would be immediately arrested for that.
But controlling violence isn't just an issue in football stadiums. With political leadership like this, there may be a slight role model problem here. And the figure of the imprisoned former Prime Minister and opposition leader Yulia Tymoshenko has led to a boycott of Euro 2012 by some leading European politicians. It's all a far cry from the heady days of 2004, when the so-called Orange Revolution brought 500,000 protesters to this square. So the future is quite clearly not orange. And Ukraine's football party has been in danger of being spoilt by persistent bad publicity around the political situation, corruption, potential flare-ups, and accommodation. Hello there, I'm checked in tonight. Thank you. A typical pleasant street near the centre of Kiev. And I am about to check in. Rajan Dato. For one night, triple room, yeah? For 3 people.
Да.
Yeah.
Shoes off here?
Shoes off, okay.
Yes.
Okay, it's pretty rudimentary. If I was paying $1,100 for this, I'd be perhaps a little bit disappointed. This was described as a triple room with shared facilities. We managed to get it tonight, which is before the tournament starts, for around $50 US. But if you wanted to book this room and you looked at the website for during the championships, it would cost $1,100 and a bit more for a double room, which is presumably smaller. And it's this kind of behaviour that led the UEFA president, Michel Platini, to describe hoteliers doing this kind of thing as crooks and bandits. And this is by no means the only example we could find. Of course, hiking prices is not unique to Ukraine. There'll always be people trying to capitalise on high demand. But have the Ukrainians missed a trick here? There's a growing desire amongst ordinary Kiev residents to help ease the accommodation problem. Just 20 minutes journey from the stadium is Anastasia's apartment block.
Hello. Nice to see you. He's coming.
Thank you. She and her husband live in this cosy but small flat, yet she's willing to share it with a foreign visitor and their family too.
I'm really scared about football fans, they're not normal. But my friend said that I should take people from Sweden.
Swedish football fans?
Yes.
They're okay, are they? Oh, okay.
They're very quiet. I know that.
Anastasia's advertising via Facebook. And what's driving this desire to provide free shelter and a bed for a stranger?
Because of prices, these high prices, crazy prices in my country.
Tell me what you think a guest would be happy staying here.
Please understand, this is my home, this is my lovely house, my flat. So I would like to invite some friends here. And all I can give, I will give for you, not food. It's very empty but we can find something to sleep.
Anastasia reckons there simply isn't enough cheap but cheerful accommodation in Kiev.
It's a good opportunity, but I feel and I see that we failed.
Failed.
Yes.
If you were in charge of the city and of Ukraine when the big football tournament was going to be on, what would you make sure would happen? What would you do?
I would say no, not to provide this kind of events. It takes too much money, and I don't think that this money will come back to a city budget.
The Ukraine State Tourism Agency says the number of hotel rooms in the 4 cities hosting Euro 2012 has increased by 114% in 2 years. So what about these inflated prices showing up on aggregator sites?
Expedia do not have any direct contracts with our hotels. Who has? Tour operators who will host, who win the right to host the people. But this tour operator did not promote themselves. They are not paying big amount to promote themselves and their web resources in the internet. That's why. And Expedia just making resale, and the price is going up. Not because of the Ukrainian hotel.
So the Ukrainian hotels aren't taking that money? They're not having that money?
No.
We asked Expedia if they were responsible for the prices being advertised. They refute this absolutely, adding that prices are set by the hotels themselves via Expedia's extranet, so the hotels control the pricing. Curiouser and curiouser. After the break, I'll be taking a train trek to Ukraine's mining and industrial base, exploring the country's complex relationship with Russia, which even goes down to who invented the national dish.
I must get sharp. Okay, I'm being told off. I'm being told off for not doing it properly.
And seeing why the autonomous region of Crimea is the big hope for tourism in this country.
The Crimean coastline, aiming to be the Riviera of Eastern Europe. This diamond-shaped peninsula used to be the jewel in the crown of the Russian Empire, and today Moscow still has a very strong grip, especially here in the naval port of Sebastopol.
Nearly 3,000 kilometres of coastline with steep cliffs and enticing beaches. Crimea has long been a favourite getaway for local, former Soviet tourists. But so far, foreigners have come for the rich history, not sun, sea and sand. This man devoted most of his adult life to serving the Soviet Navy. Alex is today a Ukrainian citizen, though he was born in Moscow to Russian parents. Indeed, ethnic Russians make up the majority of Crimeans. So, what does an old sea dog do now he's retired from the Navy? Become a tourist guide, of course.
We are in the central city park. People come here to rest on weekends. And here is the most important monument of Sevastopol is located. It is this monument to the scuttled ships. The Russian Navy was not so powerful to fight with British and French Navy outside.
The rearguard action of sinking their own ships during the Crimean War to protect the town from invading British and French naval forces is just one example of an action-packed history here.
From first days, from his birth, Sevastopol was built like special city, naval base. You will not find another such city in former Soviet Union or in old Russia. And during its life, more than two centuries, it was used mainly like naval base. And many years it was even closed city.
Even though in 1954 Soviet President Khrushchev made Crimea an autonomous republic and handed it over to Ukraine, it continues to this day to be a vital strategic base for the Russian Black Sea Fleet. It's now been allowed to park its navy here until 2042, a hugely contentious issue in this country.
If you ask any people in Sevastopol, they prefer that Russian Navy stays here. Russian Navy attract more visitors. Every time when I have clients, visitors, they ask me to organize boat trip along the Ukrainian and Russian ships. And it's really interesting.
Okay, so this is the kitchen, Alex, yeah?
Rivalry between Ukraine and Russia even includes disputes over ownership of the national dish, borscht, though I do my best in the kitchen to make it inedible, and so likely to be disowned by both nations.
You have Ukrainian borscht, apparently, and Russian borscht. Now, what is Russian borscht?
May I ask?
Yes.
Что такое русский борщ?
Русский борщ только украинский. Русский это
Борщ is only Ukrainian. Russian is щи. We can see two cooks. One of them says борщ only Ukrainian. Another says we have Siberian борщ. And other, because people, they cook борщ there and then give name of the place where they cook.
Got you. Oh, I mean, it's not good enough. I must get sharp. Okay, right, I'm being told off. I'm being told off. I'm being told off. Here's the experience. Espasibo. So this is the borscht that I made in the kitchen.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, fantastic.
Made by your hand.
I have to try it.
I hope you did not poison me.
If in the final of Euro 2012, the football, Russia is playing against Ukraine, who will you support?
When I think with my mind, I will think for good game. With their, who are the most powerful will win. But when I ask my heart and soul, it says, let's win Russia.
Indian trains are legendary the world over, but Ukrainian trains run them pretty close. Now, air connections within this country are limited, so an overnight train taking 12 hours from Sebastopol in the south to Donetsk in the east is probably the cheapest and most stress-free option. Fittings on these trains look like they haven't been changed in 40 years. The bed linen, however, is presented in a packet, fresh and clean. But one word of warning, pray that you don't need to go to the toilet for the whole 12-hour journey.
The cheapest class berths cost a mere $10, but for that you have little choice but to socialise.
No, you're taking all the cards.
Like these students returning from a camping holiday in Crimea.
I'm winning.
Almost.
It's quite cramped. I mean, you're all very close together.
It's fine. It's only for 12 hours. So, and this is like the normal way how people travel.
And do people share food and share?
Yeah, they share food, drinks, cards, telling stories.
Sometimes you can meet someone and get acquainted. Maybe that can lead to a more serious relationship.
These trains are basic, but weirdly romantic, if that's possible when you're sharing a tiny compartment with 3 complete strangers, one of whom might quite easily fall down right next to you in the middle of the night. After 12 hours travel, bleary-eyed passengers are greeted by the industrial giant that is Donetsk, one of the main host cities for Euro 2012. Well, it's 6 in the morning and I've arrived in Donetsk, and to be honest, that was like trying to sleep in an old tumble dryer. The track's really bumpy, the sound is almost industrial level, and you feel like an old sock at the end of it. Still, it was punctual, and it was a real experience. Mind you, if they can manage it without a grumble, then so can I. Donetsk has definitely had a bit of a facelift in anticipation of the football championships. Originally founded by a Welshman and saddled with the image of being a mining and smoke-belching metropolis, it actually has some very pleasant public areas. Today, it's also home to Ukraine's richest man, who's been pumping money into the famous local football club and created a spaceship of a stadium for Euro 2012. This local says she has every reason to be proud of her home city. What do you think of the way that these portrayals have been of Ukraine?
I would ask you a second question. Would you say another country, to point me another country on the map where is no corruption? Of course, we have these problems, but I would not say that any other country wouldn't have these problems. Of course, we're not, very glad about it. Of course, we want to have things to be changed, but the process is coming. If you would, for example, go to Ukraine 10 years ago and see Ukraine now, it's a big difference.
Once the hullabaloo of Euro 2012 is over, the people of Ukraine can stop and reflect. Is this going to be another false dawn after independence and the so-called Orange Revolution? Well, tourism should benefit. Certainly global awareness of this country will increase, although many people are concerned that the proceeds will end up in the hands of a privileged few. But ultimately, I think the decisive influence will be that of the younger generation, more open-minded, better educated, more worldly. Are they going to carry on playing that game of cat and mouse with Russia, or chase the dreams of the West? Well, I hope they find a third way, because ultimately this country with so much potential deserves a lucky break.